right, welcome back to the third episode of the First and 35 podcast. If you don't know by now, I'm Gus Cousins, your host, along with my co-host Ben Jordan, and our current administrator, Timothy Graham. We had a very nice, peaceful show planned out for you today, but then Terrell Pryor had to go and get stabbed, so that kind of changed a little bit of it. So I guess we'll start there. So that was interesting. That news broke about 20 minutes before we went on air now.
Minutes before.
So the Cleveland Brown wide receiver Terrell Pryor got stabbed today, and he's in critical condition, but he's expected to survive.
The Browns are facing the Steelers this weekend. In Pittsburgh,
and he got stabbed in Pittsburgh, so that's tough. Former Cleveland Brown wide receiver, he bounced around a lot throughout the years. The Raiders, the Jaguars, the Browns, just to name a few. I think he had about eight teams or so that he was on. Most recently, he was on the Jaguars in 2019 before he got cut, and now he's a free agent. But, his first priority should probably be just to survive today.
I think that's right.
Yeah. We joke about it a bit. That's a tough scene, though. That's weird.
It's a weird situation for the Browns, too.
Well, I mean, he's not even on the Browns, but he happened to, in 15-16, he played on the Browns, and they just happened to be playing Pittsburgh this weekend in Pittsburgh, and they all hate each other, and he happened to be in Pittsburgh, and it was a Pittsburgh woman who stabbed him, and now he's in hospital. So it's like weird coincidences here, there, and everywhere. But yeah, that's a tough scene. And that he's not actually on a team right now, so that he'll have to pay for all the medical expenses, which is a much more minor thing.
Well, for a guy who's played in the NFL, I don't think money's really an issue, but it's just...
Oh, for sure, but it's so many weird facts in this case, and I mean, I'm sure more are going to start to pour out once, we know the name of the person who did it and all that. But yeah, so that was a little bit of breaking news, our first ever breaking news on this podcast. So if we hear anything throughout the recording of this, we'll pass it along, but I don't think anything will come out before a police report does, and the police report won't be out for a little while. So that's that. Sticking with the NFL, Thanksgiving Thursday and the US of A recently. So there were 3 games on air. The Chicago Bears beat the Detroit Lions. The Bills beat the Dallas Cowboys in a bit of an upset.
The Saints beat the Falcons.
Yes. So starting with the Bears, because they were the first game of the day, it probably should have...
Signs of Mitch Trubisky for the first time. Almost it feels in ever.
It should have been a blowout, though, because the Detroit Lions started David Blau, a rookie quarterback. Third stringer, but now he's starting. And he had a hell of a day. He had 2 or 3 passing touchdowns. He actually looked really good. He ended the game.
Galladay looked
great.
Galladay looked great.
What was it? The first offensive play, 75-yard touchdown pass to Galladay. And I mean, it helps when you have Kenny Galladay because he's that good. But as a rookie, that's a good first game to take away from. He ended the game by throwing an interception, trying to come down. But the Bears' defense is so good. I think everybody in Detroit's probably happy with what they saw.
Oh, for sure.
And he's a likable guy. I think it's his second year, and he kind of redshirt, the equivalent of redshirting the first year, and now he's here. So that was a good start for him, even though they lost. Second game of the day, the Bills beat the Cowboys. So the Bills going to 9-3.
I think in that game too, the Cowboys scored touchdown in their first drive too, and then from there on out it was just Josh Allen.
Yeah, it was all Buffalo. It was all Josh Allen running all over the field again. The Bills improved to 9-3. The Cowboys fall to 6-6. Jerry Jones went into the locker room and started screaming at people again. Jason Garrett's still a head coach for no apparent reason. But everything's good in Buffalo.
That team's on a slide.
Yeah, Buffalo probably needs one more win to not clinch a playoff spot, but firmly grasp a playoff spot.
Pretty strong grasp on a wild card spot.
Yeah, and I don't know the standings off the top of my head, but they're going to be in there, which is good because Josh Allen's looked well
behind Patriots.
In their division. I just mean overall. But yeah, Allen looked really, really well. He became the 4th quarterback to have multiple seasons with 8 rushing TDs. So he goes along with Cam Newton, Mike Vick, and Steve McNair now. So he joins that party. He's an outstanding season. Great.
The whole Bills team, even their defense, Josh Allen.
Yeah, he resembles
really good.
a white, tall version of Cam Newton. Just the way he runs.
Yeah.
Like, he runs like Lamar Jackson does a little bit, but he's more comparable to Newton back in his heyday when he was really good. So that was an interesting game. The Cowboys looked terrible after the first drive. Bunch of players. Michael Bennett, I believe, was also in there yelling at people. It was an ugly scene. Brett Mayer missed field goals again. He didn't look too good.
Prescott, I think, too.
Prescott had Prescott has the ability to look really good some days, but then he goes out and, like, the Bills are not bad, obviously, because they're 9-3, but still, it's Buffalo, and their defense is not the greatest. They're good, but they're not the greatest.
More of a fight.
It should have been much more of a fight. And then the third game of the day, the Saints beat the Falcons 26-18. That was expected all the way. The Falcons are terrible,
And that was
even with Matt Ryan.
I think even with the Falcons, too, what did they have? 2 onside kick recoveries? Something like that?
Yeah, that was Young Ho Kim, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough, but he did that after missing, I believe, a field goal and 2 extra points.
Yeah.
So that was a weird
things to do.
Weird game for them. It would have been closer, but it's what happens. Everyone kind of expected that. Alvin Kamara again didn't really do much. The utility man, Taysom Hill, had a great game. 2 touchdowns and a blocked punt.
Oh, I saw that. Yes.
I believe that was on the second drive for the Falcons, or it might have been the first, actually, because it happened so early on. But yeah, that Taysom Hill, wide receiver, quarterback, running back, special teams guy,
everything, dude,
he's one of the only players I've heard of in the NFL that does all that. Like, there have been guys like the Bears have Cordarrelle Patterson, who does like running back and a bit of wide receiver, and then carries out punt returns.
But offense, defense, I think, is something like. Crazy.
No, it's something, and he's their backup. Well, he's not their backup quarterback, but he's their third string quarterback behind Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Brees. So he's an interesting piece to have, and I don't know where he came out of, but he's looked great in his few seasons with the Saints. So that was Thursday. Other news around the league: Mason Rudolph got benched by the
I saw that.
Pittsburgh Steelers. Duck Hodges is now the starter. So that should be interesting. They benched Rudolph midway through the game last week, and then Hodges came on, and he looked decent. He didn't look great, but he went, I think, 5 for 6 for 100 yards to start, and then he kind of leveled off, going 0 for 4 after that. But that should be an interesting game, especially because they're playing against Cleveland.
Yeah, that's always fun. Or violent.
Yeah, or violent. The Patriots, jumping back 2 weeks ago, beat the Cowboys, so they kept winning. The Ravens hammered the Rams in a complete blowout. The 49ers.
And they have the 49ers coming up this week. That should be a
very good game. The 49ers hammered the Packers. That was also a joke of a game. It wasn't even close.
Yeah.
And then the other piece that was kind of interesting was Ryan Tannehill, again, just stomping all over the Jacksonville Jaguars. 4 total touchdowns. Derrick Henry had a day. That was a great game, well, for Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans, who are staying with it. They're not in a playoff spot right now, but they're staying with it.
They're fighting.
And man, does Ryan Tannehill look so good in Titans jersey. Mariota got benched, and I think at that point a lot of people were thinking, well, it's just the season's over. We're getting Ryan Tannehill, who came off a decent year in Miami, but nothing great. And Tannehill has looked great.
He's sort of an injury-plagued guy, though, Tannehill, I think, over his...
A little bit, yeah. In 2016, he got injured when the Dolphins made their last playoff push, and Matt Moore came in. But now he looks like the real, what people thought Ryan Tannehill would look like when Miami took him in the first round all those years ago. So that was interesting. I don't know who they play this weekend. I believe they play the Colts, actually. And there's a lot of interesting games this weekend for teams trying to stay in the playoff race. And that's just one of them.
Yeah, it's a big game for the Texans this week.
The Texans too,
the Patriots.
The Patriots.
I don't think it's expected, but I think it's doable. I think
it's very doable. I mean, the Patriots, for all the criticism of their offense and Tom Brady having, well, it's just one touchdown in each of their last 2 games. Their defense has stepped up and would probably be on the level of an all-time level defense. Yeah. But still, they're not scoring a lot of points. And Deshaun Watson, another running-type quarterback who can do it, that'll be an interesting game to watch. Sticking with the football side of things, now going to the CFL, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, took out the Hamilton Tiger Cats last
And he's
weekend.
wearing pants.
The Blue Bombers
Footage
fan
has been leaked.
is wearing pants. They got it on broadcast after the game was over.
He looked like he was having trouble.
He was having trouble putting on some pants, but it's 19 years in the
having
making.
trouble.
I'll give him some time. 33-12. Hamilton looked like they had no shot. Andrew Harris, in my opinion, probably should have won the MVP. Ran all over the field. I don't believe he got either of the awards because he got suspended 2 games earlier on in the season. But he looked great coming out of the backfield, pass catching. He made a couple good long catches there. Chris Drevler looked great. He got beat up a bit, so Zach Claros came in, and he did really well. It's a tough way to end the season for Dane Evans and the Hamilton Tiger Cats because Evans
no, it's not. It's not that they had a bad season. It's just
no, they had a really
got to
good
the finals,
season.
right?
Evans was in his first year. He came in. He looked great up until that game, and then it was just fumble recoveries. They couldn't hang on to the ball. They're maybe the number 1 wide receiver in the whole league. Brandon Banks went down with an injury, and a couple other guys left the game. And it was just, they didn't put up much of a fight. So the Blue Bombers win for the first time in a very long time. Pants guy got his pants again. And the Montreal Alouettes inked their head coach, Curry Jones, to a 3-year extension. The Alouettes went 10-8 last year, or this year, I should say, and they lost in the wildcard game. So not a bad season by their stretch, but they expect more. So now the CFL season's done, wrapped up totally. But that was an interesting way to go out. I didn't think it would be a Hamilton-Winnipeg showdown in the finals. Far from it. I thought Saskatchewan really had a good chance to go there, and I liked Edmonton too with Trevor Harris. But it ended up being Winnipeg that takes him down and not much of a fight.
Yeah,
so,
it wasn't close.
No, it wasn't close. That's about it for football-related stuff.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go next?
We can talk about the NHL, I think. So the Stars' point streak snapped
2 games ago.
2 games ago, and a shutout loss to Chicago.
Yeah, Corey Crawford shut him out. 3-0 final, and then they lost again yesterday.
Yeah, that ends a 14-1-1 streak.
Yeah, and then they're 0-2 over their last 2. So it happens, I guess. Still second in the Central behind the St. Louis
really
Blues.
turned their start around.
Yeah, definitely.
Completely.
The Blues looked so good without Tarasenko, without
the Blues
Bortuzzo.
have looked good the whole year.
Yeah, they're a team to beat. And Jake Allen looked great last night. I know he's on and off.
Yeah, they're one of those teams sort of like the Islanders where you look up and down their lineup on paper and you're like, well, you know, these guys are a fringe team. They're okay, but they just play together. They have...
Once Tarasenko announced that he would be out for a prolonged period of time, I think a lot of people kind of wrote them off, which is just a terrible thing to do because you should never write off any championship team from the year before for any reason, I don't believe.
I know.
But yeah.
Sort of they did with the Raptors, right? With, like, you know, Kawhi's gone. Like, the Raptors don't stand a chance. It's like, well...
Yeah, and the Raptors are a whole separate thing, which we'll dive into a bit later. Sticking with Toronto, though, back goalie Casimir Kaskisuo got sent down. Hutchinson got recalled, played his first game for the Leafs in the Keefe era yesterday. I thought he looked good. He made a couple good saves. Now, the stat line says he let in 5 goals. I think maybe one or 2 of those would have been his fault. And I know we say that every time Hutchinson is in the net, but sometimes you got to have defense that doesn't crumble and fall apart.
The thing is, the defense crumbles every night. It's just Freddie backs them up sometimes, and we overshadow a lot of the...
It'd be nice to get a save once in a while, which is what I'm hearing a lot of people say, but I think it's kind of unfair. But again, they're giving Hutchinson another shot.
And again,
he dominated the AHL.
Toronto hockey market, and they just got fire boys everywhere. And when goalies don't make saves, it's easy to turn your head. But
when it comes down to the end of the season, nothing's going to change. You're going to have Hutchinson or you're going to have Kaskisuo.
And either of them are not...
Ian Scott is not getting the call. I hate to say it, but he needs at least one more year in the AHL. Yeah. And you're not going to call him up and have Hutchinson just dominate the AHL. He won't want that. Like, he's done really well there, but the ultimate goal is to perform in the NHL, and he hasn't done it yet because he's 0-5-1 now. But you just got to give him the chance. And Casimir Kaskisuo, he's under contract still for a little bit. Like, he can have time to build in the minors, and nothing's going to change. You got to get used to having Hutchinson.
You got to keep rolling him out. I mean, obviously in the Leafs situation as minimal as possible, but
well, yeah. Keep rolling him out. And that brings me to, we had a conversation off air, and you brought up the idea of possibly trying to I don't know how you want to say it, platoon goalies.
Well, I think this whole thing sort of comes down to a more in the moment decision. It's not one of those things that you can say, okay, I'm walking into this game and our goalies are going to split the game. And I don't think it works like that. But situations like the other night, I think it was Thursday in Detroit.
Wednesday night in Detroit.
I think it was Wednesday in Detroit. Yeah.
The Leafs were killing the Detroit. I'm forgetting the team name.
Red Wings.
The Red Wings. Yeah, they're so
Leafs
bad.
Are killing them, and it pains me to watch that, knowing that the Leafs only had however many games that week, 2, leading into the double against Buffalo yesterday and today.
Friday and Saturday.
It's just they're like engraved in their head that they have to split back-to-backs, and I think in the Leafs case they don't. I think they need wins right now, and rolling Freddie out there might be their only option. And when you see Freddie in there and the Leafs have complete control over the game, I'm not saying you do it. I'm just saying I think it's something worth thinking about. Is that if you throw in Hutch when it's what was it, 4-0 Red Wings after the first, 3-0?
3-0, I believe, after the first,
3-0.
and in the second they got it to 6-0, and then nothing happened in the third period.
I think that's just free times to give Anderson rest, and I think they need to capitalize on that.
I wholeheartedly disagree and think that's an awful idea, as I've said before. I think there's no chance, not in today's NHL, that you have a goalie start 2 games of a back-to-back, and I think platooning. I'm thinking about platooning, but if the situation comes up, I just think that's a bad idea for the reasons that I've said off air. But you have 2 goalies, you may as well use them. And even if it's a guy like Hutchinson, who obviously is not the most dominant backup goalie in the league, you're paying him, he's on the roster. I say use him. You give him the best chance to win. Now, does he win? No. Well, he hasn't won yet. But the idea that he probably
hopefully
will.
People can help set him up for success. Hopefully the defense can.
Yeah, the defense can get its head out of its ass and actually defend, because that was a joke of a game last night. They were up 2-0, and then they just got lackadaisical about the whole thing, and Jack Eichel ripped him apart. Like, that was one of the worst defensive performances, having a 2-0 lead that I've seen in quite a long time yesterday by the Leafs. Jake Muzzin continues to struggle beyond belief.
Yeah.
Barry's found his step now, though, because he's scoring. He's getting on the score sheet.
And no one really brought in Barry with the intention that he's going to be a stay-at-home guy and actually defend. So before he wasn't playing offense or defense. Now at least we're getting some production. Yeah, and it'll be Sheldon Keefe's first test, really. It's his first loss now. They're 3-1, I believe, in the Keefe era. They bounce back tonight.
We'll see how it goes. Freddie Anderson will be starting along with Carter Hutton. Carter Hutton, there's no way you're starting Linus Ullmark for the reasons that, again, I've just said. So that'll be a good game. It'll be the matchup of 2 number ones. Yesterday Linus Ullmark started for Buffalo. He looked pretty good too.
Yeah, he did.
The stat lines don't do it justice for either of these guys because just the defense for both teams were not great. Not a whole lot going on in the NHL after that.
Not a whole lot of updates.
Slow week. Yeah. So I would say jumping onto basketball now, and the Toronto Raptors have been on a bit of a roll. Well, more of a bit of a roll lately.
And another comeback win last night
against Orlando.
Orlando
Magic.
I think at half they'd only scored 37 points or something, and they were down 10. And complete turnaround. I think Norman Powell went crazy. I think he was.
Norman Powell had a career high. I believe it was either 31 or 34 points.
I was gonna say, I think he
hit a bunch of threes. They looked very good. A good defensive game too. I don't know the exact score because I didn't watch it, but it was a good comeback win. They're on a roll. What are they? 13-4, 14-4 now. Something ridiculous like that. Second in the conference.
Was rolling out that they've won 33 straight games at home against Atlantic Division opponents. So Philly, Boston, Brooklyn.
Yeah, so that applied the Knicks. Yeah. 2 games ago, RJ Barrett was in town, and they obviously beat the Knicks because with or without RJ Barrett, the Knicks are just such terrible franchise right now.
Awful.
And then they go down to Orlando and they keep rolling. I don't think anybody expects them to stop. I believe they're 1.5 games behind Milwaukee just because the Bucks are so good now too.
And actually, I think their first real test might come this week. I think, or next week, Wednesday. The Clippers are in town, I think. Kawhi's return to Toronto.
Yeah, hopefully he plays.
Yeah. Well, I think they're giving him his ring, right, or whatever.
You know, he'll be there, but like, I would not be able to imagine if he pulled that load management stuff coming back to Toronto. That would be a major uproar in the city.
That would be more fines, probably.
Well,
you
maybe.
gotta think that's the kind of thing that the NBA hates.
I don't think you can fine a team.
They already did.
Yeah,
they've already fined the Clippers for load management.
I guess, but with a rich organization.
I mean, it means nothing to them.
Yeah.
$50,000 means nothing to Kawhi. It means nothing to the Clippers, but it's just.
I hope he plays. It'll be a good game to watch. Yeah, that's about it. The Raptors, there's not much to say because they're just on a roll. Serge Ibaka, I don't believe is back yet. Kyle Lowry is not back yet. They should be back relatively soon.
I think Kyle Lowry is targeting his return for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Against the Utah Jazz. And Basketball Canada, Jamal Murray, RJ Barrett, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander intend to join Team Canada's roster for qualifications.
Yes, those are the three notable ones, along with others like Norm Powell, who will probably be there. Kelly Olynyk, who's obviously going to show up. Chris Boucher.
Chris Boucher, tweeted out saying that he'd be interested. I don't know how far that'll go, but you have to think for Canada.
He'll probably be on the roster. Yeah. Kem Birch is another one, I believe, who will be there. There are guys that always show up to these. But yeah, the big three of RJ Barrett, Jamal Murray, the best Canadian in the league, most likely. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It's just great news for Team Canada, who have struggled with getting guys to come out in their most recent, I believe, qualifying tournament in Australia about a few months ago. I forget what the exact date was. I don't believe they had really any NBA guys. They had sports guys.
Yeah. Well, they had Corey Joseph.
Joseph. Yeah. I said Norm Powell earlier. I meant Corey Joseph.
Yeah. Corey Joseph.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if you saw the Lakers returned, or the Lakers were facing the Pelicans. Anthony Davis returned, and he got a rude welcoming. I guess you could say.
I did not see that. No.
He just walked in, dropped 41. Left quietly, and I don't know if you saw Kuzma's comments after the game, but he said they shouldn't be entitled or whatever to be booing like any player who scores 41, which is more than I think their top three combined. It was like Drew Holiday, Lonzo Ball, and Josh Hart didn't even combine for 41 or whatever total. It was just anyway. That was that.
There's too much drama in the NBA. I get that they like it, especially during free agency in the off season, but it gets, for me, who's not a basketball fan, really, I follow the Raptors, it gets old after a while. Watching these storylines pop up and down, like this goddamn Kyrie Irving thing.
Oh, the whole Kyrie Kemba thing, yeah. That was...
It's irritating. I mean, it's not irritating. I guess it's interesting for some people, but to me, I just have no interest in following that. After a while, it gets old.
It gets really old, yeah.
Just like in the NHL, the Matthew Tkachuk thing, it grew old on me. There are things in sports that grew old.
Thing. Yeah.
Get over it. Easy for me to say because I obviously don't follow the league as much as others, but yeah. So that's another thing in the NBA.
And
the Warriors continue to suck.
Yeah, the Warriors suck. Steve Kerr, I don't know, in a rare Warriors win, there was a Steve Kerr bashing around his clipboard and just stupid stuff.
Yeah, I mean, nobody expects them to really do well. I've said this last week and the week before, so I won't get into it again. But it's it's fun to watch them fail. I think it's
we've watched them all just win for the last 3 or 4 years or whatever. So it's good to get a change.
Yeah, changing of the guard, if you will. So that's pretty much all the basketball stuff. Again, a boring week, kind of. Not that we want it to be super exciting, but a bit of a boring week. The NHL and the NBA.
Like sports in general.
Yeah. Onto my favorite part of the podcast, because I know so much about it, the MLB. So after we went off air, tons of stuff happened in the MLB. Yeah. Not a whole lot of it was notable, but I'm going to tell you some stuff anyways. So after we went off air, Jarrell Cotton got traded to the Cubs from the A's for cash considerations. Cotton was a guy I mentioned last week. Is a guy I think the Jays should take a shot on because you got cash. But
the Jays should take a shot on probably basically anyone you named or anyone you're going to name.
Yeah, quite a few guys on this list sitting in front of me that I think they should have went after. The Tigers, got Darryl Egersol from the Pirates for cash. Another minor move. The Jays traded Justin Schaefer after DFAing him to the Reds.
Yeah. And
for cash, he's 27. He's a
that one's a
3.75 career
confusing one.
MLB
That
ERA.
one's confusing.
You need bullpen guys. I talked about it last week. It's insane to me that you can do that, but
it doesn't get much
happens,
better
I
than
suppose.
a young guy, a 27-year-old, I think.
27 with control.
3.7 career ERA. It just seems ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. He had a 3.25 ERA in his rookie year in 2018, and then he carried it over for a higher 3 ERA, but still below 4. And it's just mind-boggling that they do this shit. It's just so irritating to watch. The Mariners got Nestor Cortez Jr., who was a swingman, pitched out of the bullpen, and started a few games for the Yankees for international signing money.
He has good versatility.
I like Nestor Cortez Jr. Last year, the Mariners utilized Tommy Malone in that same sense, and Malone's now a free agent. And they used him as a kind of a long man after an opener, but he could also start a couple games. An innings eater, and he's young too. He's 26 or 27, something like that.
With like a sort of stacked up Yankees bullpen rotation, all that stuff.
Yeah, you definitely didn't need him.
Right?
Yeah, he would be another guy I thought the Jays might take a chance on, but it's the Yankees. It's intradivisional. It didn't happen for various reasons. The Rays got Brian O'Grady from the Reds, who the Reds DFA'd for a player to be named later, or cash.
And the Rays waived Jesus Aguilar.
Sort
of I guess you'd call him one-season wonder. I don't really know.
He had a really good season in Milwaukee. He went to Tampa Bay. He had a decent season, but nothing great. He's another guy I think Blue Jays get him on the cheap as a first baseman backup for Rowdy Tellez or someone like that. Brian O'Grady was DFA'd when the Reds got Justin Schaefer, so kind of spinning rotation of moves. The Padres, in an actual notable trade for once, the Padres got Trent Grisham and Zach Davies from the Brewers for their 22nd overall prospect in the Major Leagues of Baseball. Luis Urias, Eric Lauer, and player to be named later, or cash. That's an interesting trade, I find.
That is an interesting trade.
Because the Brewers have a very interesting roster setup, and they traded Zach Davies, who was their 3-4 guy. I believe he, when Anderson was out and Jimmy Nelson was out, he pitched more than usual.
Yeah, I think he actually did not half bad either.
No, and in return, pitching-wise, they got Eric Lauer, who was 24. He was a Padres prospect for quite a while. He had a tough year. He had 5.44 ERA last year. But now he's looking to rebound, and he's young, he's controllable. He's usable in Milwaukee for a team that's looking for pitching all the time. Other part of the deal, the Padres got Trent Grisham. Hopefully he knows how to pick the ground ball right now. That was probably a safety move, as was pointed out to me. And then the Brewers got Luis Urias. That'll be an interesting move because Urias didn't hit real well last year. He was a top baseball prospect throughout the major leagues. And for a while he had 0.96, and then he kind of bumped it up a bit. And with the kind of there's a lot of players in the Brewers farm system and in the majors right now for middle infield spots. And this move might mean the end of Orlando Arcia because he's couldn't hit enough. So Arcia might be on the move. Watch out for that.
I think this move was sort of, if anything, a little bit of a notice to the Padres sort of want to win now. I think this might not be the last move we see from them.
Zach Davies is by no means their new ace or anything.
No, that's not what I mean. I just mean giving up Lauer, giving up Urias. These are young guys, and Zach Davies isn't old by any stretch of the mean.
No, he's 27, I believe.
He's older. He's going to be more part of the Padres now as opposed to the Padres in
Yes, he has experience. He's pitched, I believe, once over the last couple of years in the playoffs for the Brewers. He knows how to get there, and he's not a bad pitcher by any means. He was could have made the All-Star team last year, in my personal opinion, because he had a good start to the season, then he leveled off. His ERA was like mid-twos for a while.
Yeah.
He's an interesting guy. Yeah, he has a very slow fastball, if you will. He is like a 89, 90 mile per hour fastball. Yeah, he's not a guy that you think would have success.
Yeah.
But he does. And then an absolute ton of signings. The Blue Jays signed AJ Cole to a minor league deal. I believe that happened either the same day or just before they got rid of Justin Schaefer. AJ Cole was pitched for the Cleveland Indians last year for a bit, and then in their farm system too. He's not a bad pickup, I don't think. He's relatively young still. He has upside. He's done it before. The Dodgers signed their backup catcher Rocky Gale to a minor league deal. The Giants signed your boy Trey McNutt.
What a name.
Again, to a minor league deal. The Rangers signed ex-Blue Jays infielder Rob Refsnyder to a minor league deal. The Athletics signed a whole slew of guys. A couple of them, Jamie Schultz, who I pointed out last time as an ex-top guy. Zach Lee, Ian Gardick, Lucas Luetke, who's another lefty option. Brian Schlitter, who did decently for the Minnesota Twins a couple years ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
Brian Goins, who's bounced around, among others. The Twins signed Blaine Hardy. He's comparable to, I thought, Chasen Shreve, as I mentioned last time.
He's
a
the
guy
Tigers guy, right?
He was the Tigers lefty. He didn't have a great couple seasons, but he's a major league pitcher, I think. And the Twins, who were taking a chance on him, if you find something, he's a lefty specialist. You can use him. Hint, hint, Toronto. They also signed Ryan Garten and backup catcher Juan Gratterall. The Red Sox waived Brian Johnson, who was another lefty pitcher, swingman, kind of Nestor Cortez type.
Swingman, yeah.
Nobody claimed him, so he went down to AAA. The White Sox waived Yolmer Sanchez. That was an interesting move.
Saw that.
And I know why they did it, but he was the Gold Glove winner for second baseman this year. So
yeah, I know. It
it's
wasn't
weird.
it wasn't like a stupid reasoning or whatever. It wasn't something like that. It was just a little bit surprising.
Yeah, and I know they have Yoan Moncada there, and he's bouncing around between second and third, but Moncada will probably take over at second base. But obviously, Yolmer's going to get picked up. He's a 244 hitter last year. He only hit 2 home runs, but he got on base a little bit. And a Gold Glove second baseman. He's a...
You almost think just sort of a guy like this, like, try and trade him. Even if you get, like an average prospect and like some cash or something, it's better than just...
Yeah, it might be a little bit easier
him, right?
said than done because these guys are getting to their arbitration years and, teams need money.
You just gotta believe that one of the 30 teams will take a flyer. I don't know.
Interesting one you pointed out to me. The Orioles waived Jonathan VR.
Yeah, that was another one that sort of fell into the same thing. It's like, yeah, he's kind of older, but you're telling me that there's not one team that would be interested in Jonathan VR? Like, that seems...
Well, I thought it was... Well, okay, so the Orioles are a terrible team. They're rebuilding. The reason I think they did it is because VR would have gotten paid $10 million. And on a rebuilding team, you don't need... what's he, 31? He's a good utility guy. Like, he's going to get a major league contract.
Player. He's going to be in the major leagues next year.
Yes, for sure. And for years to come after that. But you don't need to be paying $10 million to a guy that has no future on your team.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense that the Orioles don't want him. It's just you'd think they could get something for him.
Yeah.
Is sort of the bottom line, I guess.
And I suppose it comes down to what teams are willing to pay at the trade deadline for guys like this. But, that was an interesting move. He'll, I believe, become a free agent, and then somebody will sign him for probably less than $10 million.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have a great offensive season last year. Waiver claims, Reds claim Nick Martini from the Padres, who I brought up last week. The Cubs claimed C.D. Pelham, who I thought the Jays should go after. The Rangers claimed Nick Goody from Cleveland, who had a good year last year. 28, 29, around there. That'll be an interesting bullpen piece for them along with Jesse Chavez. The Rangers could be a sneaky good team next year.
They're one good player away from being a lot better than people think.
Oh, if they sign someone big like Anthony Rendon, I think the expectations jump such a large amount in Texas and Arlington that people will expect them to make the playoffs next year. And any team with Anthony Rendon, I think you should expect to make the playoffs.
Or at least expect to have a chance.
Yes.
It kind of comes down to what...
It comes down to their pitching in Texas.
If they get some Lance Lynn, Mike Minor magic again, they could very well do it.
Yeah, well, or Kyle Gibson, because they signed Kyle Gibson to a 3-year, $30 million deal.
That's right.
Jays were in on him. They offered him a contract. Presumably, it was less than 3 years and $30 million. It's too bad the Jays didn't get him because you're running out of guys now to get that fit the description of what you want. And Wheeler's kind of one of the few remaining guys that fit
Wheeler's kind of there, but the Jays have given their fans no reason to hope or think
that they'll go after.
Are going to go after Wheeler.
Yeah,
which is too bad, but it's the situation they're in.
I feel like if they are going to get someone like that, you gotta make a trade for someone. I don't know who that someone is off the top of my head, but I don't think they're going to end up getting Wheeler, which is not a surprise, but it's disappointing because they're in on guys like Gibson.
Yeah.
They would have been in on guys like Odorizzi. It's a tough scene. But it was a good deal for the Texas Rangers, I think.
Yeah.
It's $10 million a year. I mean, hell, VR was getting paid $10 million a year. I think Kyle Gibson's going to be worth it. He didn't have a great season with the Twins last year, but I think he'll be better. Probably an ERA in 3, around mid-3s next year. He was 4.25, 4.26 last year with the Twins.
I'd say he'll probably win over 10 games.
He'll probably, yeah, because with Joey Gallo, they got a decent team down there. And especially if Gibson is coming in as your 3-man behind Lynn and Minor, if they can put up what they did last year, then he's a good 3-man. And then you're left with 2 various spots to fill. I'm not a fan of the Rangers. I don't know who else they got, but they got guys, presumably.
Yeah.
The Rays signed Mike Zunino to a 1-year, $4.5 million deal plus an incentive-laden option for a second year for 4.6. Yeah, so he was on the Rays last year. He did well. He's a well-hitting catcher who hits a lot of home runs,
well,
not for a high
he won't
average.
Hit for average. He'll hit you
he won't.
200, between 200 and 250 probably, but he'll hit home runs.
But he's the type of player the Rays want. I think he fits the description of a Tampa Bay Rays player.
Take advantage of the fact that he only hits home runs instead of making it a negative.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he puts in a G-Man Choi-like season this year in Tampa, because he has that in him. He hit a lot of home runs every single year of his career. He just can't get on base as much as people would like him to. But in Tampa Bay, you don't really need that because that's not what the team roster's built around. Staying with free agent catchers, the Braves signed Travis d'Arnaud to a 2-year, $14 million deal. I like it too. The Braves get a good catcher. He hasn't done much since being traded from the Jays and the Syndergaard deal to the Mets. He's bounced around the Dodgers, the Rays. He found his legs, hit a bunch, and now Alex Anthopoulos, who was the GM, now the GM of the Braves, who was the GM at the time when the Blue Jays had him, apparently liked him enough to go out and sign him for $7 million a year. It's a good move.
I just think paying d'Arnaud for 2 years, $7 million for 2 years, just can't not be a win. For the team, McCann's getting old. Flowers is sort of getting up there. Well,
Brian McCann is retired.
Yeah, and Tyler Flowers getting old.
Yeah, and he'll probably get a mix with Flowers. Flowers had a productive season last year too. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a 30% of the games that will be handed to d'Arnaud if he keeps hitting the way he's hitting. The Nationals signed Yan Gomes, another catcher, to a 2-year, $10 million deal. I like that again. Not sure if Kurt Suzuki is a free agent. I don't believe he is, but I like that tandem.
Much on Kurt Suzuki, so I'd assume not.
Yeah, I like that tandem of catching there with Kurt Suzuki and Yan Gomes. They're both offensively decent. Gomes hits more home runs, but Kurt Suzuki handles that pitching staff really, really well, and people like him there.
And you have to. The last thing you want to do is piss off Scherzer, Corbin, potentially Strasburg if he returns.
Yeah, that too. You build around the players that you have and who they like. Yeah. So having him return to the Washington Nationals, it's another step forward. I think it's really good. The Astros signed Dustin Garneau to a 1-year major league deal for $650,000. I like that because Garneau actually did pretty well with the Oakland A's in limited opportunities last year because they obviously had Josh Fagley, they had guys bouncing up and down. But he's an interesting guy because he was ex-Oakland A, ex-Colorado Rocky, bounced around quite a bit in the minors. And he signed a major league deal in the Astros, who don't have much catching depth at all because
they don't. I think
both
Chirinos
is a free agent, and their backup is also a free agent. So he's an interesting guy to watch. I think he handles the staff fairly well.
Maldonado?
Maldonado is a free agent as well.
Oh, yeah.
So right now, Garneau, I believe, is their starting catcher, and he won't be. By
Presumably.
the time, no, he won't. But I like the signing. It's cheap again. Garneau's a likable guy, and he put up decent numbers in Oakland. He hit a couple home runs, got on base at below a 250 average, but for a catcher, that's not half bad. The Mariners made a slew of moves. They signed Carl Edwards Jr. to
I think that's not a bad one.
No, I think he did. Well, he had a really good first year in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then he bounced around. Didn't do really well in San Diego last year.
But for the Mariners, I think adding Edwards Jr. and Nestor Cortez is
It's a good bullpen relief option. So that's a 1-year, $950K deal plus $500K in incentives, depending how well he performs. So he could make it up over $1 million.
Yeah.
They also signed Patrick Wisdom, who was really a lifelong minor league guy. He's 31. He hit a ton of home runs last year in the minors, 31 or 32 for the Cardinals. Springfield, I want to say. But he gets a 2-way deal, so it's one of the few 2-way deals. He gets paid in advance for a minor league contract, but he'll be added to the roster, obviously, because they don't have a lot of guys there, and he'll get paid much more. Sign ex-Blue Jay guy Kendall Graveman, 1 year, $1.5 million. Solid depth option for a team that doesn't have a lot of...
Trade, right?
He was in the Donaldson trade along with Laurie. So he came back, he was with the Cubs last year, didn't do great. The Padres signed Drew Pomerantz to a 4-year, $34 million deal.
I don't like
that.
Things.
I don't like that at all.
I think they'll start him maybe in their rotation. I think he'll end up being one of those swingman type guys.
He had a great second half with Milwaukee once he went to Milwaukee after having an abysmal first half with the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah,
but
that was
he's
awful.
4 years, 34. My bet's in 2 years. If he's even there in 2 years, he'll be right at the same time getting waived or DFA'd because I don't think that's going to end well. 4 years for a guy in his 30s, I don't like that at all. The Rangers, as we said, signed Kyle Gibson. The Diamondbacks signed Stephen Vogt to a 1 year, $3 million deal. So him and Carson Kelly will get split time.
That one had like some options.
Yeah, they had a vesting option, so depending how well he does, the team can bring him back for a second year. He's more of an offensive catcher, which isn't a bad thing because Carson Kelly, although he put up numbers in St. Louis when he was a top prospect in the St. Louis system, he hasn't really shown a whole lot of that yet. But obviously, Kelly's going to be the starter. Yeah, Carson Kelly will get the most of the starts, and Stephen Vogt will fill in. He's been a solid guy around the league. He knows how to play.
He had a good run with Oakland.
Good run with Oakland. San Francisco, too. The Phillies signed Josh Harrison to a minor league deal. God-awful season with the Tigers last year.
I mean...
I feel bad for the guy, but...
The Tigers had a god-awful season.
Yeah. An interesting move I liked. I haven't heard too much of this, guys. The Rockies signed reliever Jose Mujica to a major league deal, a full major league deal. So he's on the roster, MLB roster. He's only 23. He hasn't pitched in the majors at all yet.
Yeah,
he was in the Tampa Bay system. He was one of those interesting international signing guys, and he did decently. He didn't do terrible. But obviously, Tampa Bay has a slew of pitching options.
You don't see guys using their international money all the time.
So the Rockies pick him up on the cheap. I wouldn't be surprised if he's like a long man in the bullpen or an occasional fifth starter behind Estevez or someone like Carlos Estevez.
He'll get a shot.
He'll get a shot for sure, and the Rockies don't have a ton of pitching anyways. Going outside the MLB, Drew Verhagen, who was an not Tampa Bay, Detroit guy.
Detroit, yeah.
He's been around Detroit, up and down in the minors. He signed a deal with Hokkaido, the Nippon Ham Fighters in Japan. I think I just butchered that name really, really badly. And our administrator's nodding his head, so that's unfortunate. We'll go through it. Couple other guys signed in Japan. Justin Bohr, who was an interesting guy.
Justin Bohr.
Didn't really work out with the Angels.
He sort of just was there, hit shots on the Marlins.
He hit shots occasionally, but he couldn't hit for average. Yeah. I believe he had one All-Star year for Miami, I think.
Yeah, I think he was in the All-Star game.
Yeah, he signed with the Hanshin Tigers. There's a name I can pronounce. Nick Kingham signed with Team and Career, who I'm not even going to try because it's just going to be insulting. 1 year, $700,000 plus $200K bonus with incentives.
Yeah, he sort of just was there on the Jays. Was not good.
Yeah, and so that's about it. Trevor Bauer's car, this story that I like Trevor Bauer. I'm one of the few people that like that.
$300,000.
Yeah,
in damage to his McLaren, I believe it was.
Yeah, in his own personal showroom. So a truck carrying, I guess, tires. A tire fell off on the highway, skipped over in like 6 lanes of traffic, crashed into his showroom, damaged part of the outside of his house, and totaled his car. So, I mean, obviously he has tons of money, and he was joking about it on Twitter, making fun of himself. But
I mean, yeah, my new car isn't the huge
no,
deal
it's not,
here. It's
no, but
safety.
it's still a nice McLaren. Like, it was a nice car.
Yeah.
And he was making fun of himself. He had insurance on the car, though, so that's the other thing. So we did put insurance on it, so he'll get a bunch of money back for it. But so that was kind of a funny story.
Don't know how much money he'll get back. Don't know how much of an accident it really was.
That's weird too. And now he flew off to Japan today or yesterday, so he's out of the country. It's Trevor Bauer. What do you expect?
Yeah, I think he landed to some unwelcoming news, I guess. Not being able to
he
fly his drones
in his hotel room in Japan. They left him, like, in broken English, a note saying, just a forewarning, you can't fly drones around most places in Japan. Which is kind of funny. I like the guy.
It might save him some stitches, right?
It might save him some stitches and a little embarrassment,
too. Might thank him later.
Yeah. The last thing I want to talk about before we wrap this up, again, baseball related, is the Rule 5 draft is coming up on December 12th. If the Jays don't do what I think they should do, what I've said they should do, which is sign a bunch of minor league guys and see if they work out, you have a garbage roster right now with garbage bullpen arms and pretty much a pretty bad starting rotation with some young guys here and there. I get it. But, so, the Rule 5 draft is coming up. I know teams don't usually pick a whole lot of players, and for good reason, because they're either too young, you're not going to succeed, they've had a rough outing.
Teams are also in a different situation than the Jays right now.
Yeah, like, I wouldn't be, like, Baltimore picking guys, San Francisco picking guys. There's a lot of teams out there. The Royals picking guys. Last year in the draft, the Orioles selected Richie Martin, I believe is the first overall pick. He was a Oakland A prospect. He played shortstop. He had a terrible year last year.
Yeah.
He might have been one of the worst major league players last year for the Baltimore Orioles, and that's saying something because it's Baltimore and everyone sucks. A couple of guys I had written down there, though, that I thought the Jays should go after. The first guy who I like, he was a 2015 pick, Cody Sedlock, who was a starting pitcher. He pitched in Double-A for Baltimore last year. He's their number 17 prospect, but he's old enough. I believe he's 26 or 25. He's had experience through a lot of innings in Double-A. Obviously,
they're just gonna eat some innings.
Yes,
basically.
Obviously, none of these guys that I've listed down here are great top end rotation guys, top end bullpen guys, because they're not on a 40-man roster for a reason. But he's an interesting guy I liked. A lot of teams, I've seen this one bounced around, is Thomas Burrows, who's a lefty for the Braves. He's their number 16 overall prospect. Tons of Ks against lefties. He's had it much worse against righties. But he could be a lefty specialist, right? Like, he's just a guy come in. Tim Mays is going to be out for a while, and you're losing guys like Dermody, who's a lefty in the minors, and you also have guys like Kirby Snead, who's not on the active roster. He would be a guy I would take a chance on. He pitched in Double-A, but mostly Triple-A last year, so he has experience eating innings. From the Cubs, Oscar De La Cruz, who's a Double-A guy. He was a top-end starting pitching prospect for quite a while. Leveled off. They moved him to the bullpen. He throws very, very hard. Pitched in Double-A for the majority of last year. He was their number 22 prospect. Again, take a shot. I forgot who they took in the Rule 5 pick last year. He was injured for the majority of this year. Elvis Luciano. He could be an Elvis Luciano guy because he throws hard. He's young. Not as young as Luciano because he's 19. And Luciano will not see the majors this year, I don't think. They kept him on the roster for a full year. Now they can send him down. Exactly. He'll get work in Double-A and Triple-A. First baseman from the Rockies, Roberto Ramos. He's a guy I like because he's a left-handed bat, similar to Rowdy Tellez. He had back-to-back seasons in the minors with 30 home runs, 30 and 31 over the last 2 seasons. Now, he strikes out a bit, so he's very, very comparable to Rowdy Tellez. But he seems to be just a little bit more consistent because his average isn't as low as Tellez's, at least on in AAA. Look over
back-to-back 30 homer seasons anyway, right? Like any scouts or any...
Yeah, and the Rockies...
Watching, you don't just miss that.
The Rockies, they have Ryan McMahon over at first base. They have the position filled, which is why he has obviously been added to the 40-man roster. I think that could be a decent pickup. He's their number 27 overall prospect. And probably the most interesting one of the bunch is... the number 3 overall prospect for the Brewers, Zach Brown, who pitched a ton of innings in AAA last year. He's had injuries here and there after getting drafted, but he played all of last year. He's a right-handed pitcher. He has good outings, but his average length last year was 4 2/3 innings. He throws a lot of pitches, and he can't get through a lot of innings during his starts, which is why they've also used him as a long man in the bullpen, and I know it's AAA, so it will not convert as much as starting pitching will from one level to another. But he's an interesting guy.
Success, right?
For sure, and there's a reason he's their 3rd overall prospect. And I think he's another guy you take a chance on if you're not going to sign these minor league free agents who I seem to have a fetish for, but they're they're good enough options. So that should be interesting. It happens on December 12th. Obviously, not just the Blue Jays are going to be in it. As I've listed,
every team's
every team's
technically has a chance to be in it, but
Well, within
Obviously,
reason, there are a few exceptions. I
realistically,
believe teams like I don't believe the Dodgers will have a pick because they overspent their luxury tax and their roster's full anyways.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if you have a full 40-man roster, you're not going to be there picking guys to add, or excuse me, 25-man roster, or 26-man now that it's changing. So the better teams will not pick somebody, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Jays pick up, like, I'd be happy with one or two of these guys. Thomas Burrows or Cody Sedlock, somebody to eat innings with.
Yeah.
But that happens in a couple weeks, so that should be interesting.
And hopefully we get, like, a little more action this week.
A little more action,
news,
yeah.
maybe some more.
Hopefully nobody else gets
Crazy.
stabbed.
Yeah.
But, it's something to talk about. And we've had no updates all throughout this podcast of
We have no updates.
I believe the last we heard was
Pryor.
it was critical. It was like he was in critical condition in hospital, life threatening. But I think he's gonna be fine. Well, in the long run, he's gonna be fine. He's obviously not fine right now. But and I don't know. He's 30. He's a free agent. I don't know if he'll ever play again.
I don't know if he'll ever touch a football again.
No, but it's a nasty way to go out if he does go out. I mean, he played earlier on the season, and Jacksonville is by no means a good offensive team right now, but they must have cut him for some reason that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Because we're here in Canada, but
tons of stuff we don't know, right?
Yes, exactly. So hoping the best for him. Hopefully he comes out of it better than he is right now.
Yeah, and hopefully we don't have any more.
Yeah, hopefully nobody else gets stabbed, but it's the
weekend.
NFL, and I hate to say it, but I guarantee you somebody's going to get stabbed or somebody's going to throw
Steelers
fists.
Sunday, so we really don't know what's happening.
Yeah, we could come back next week and like 5 guys could be murdered and 1 guy could be in jail and Rudolph might be dead. So we don't really know. That's about it for this podcast, 3rd episode. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you for listening.